Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, the space where we bring you Black America's news, views, and opinions. Today is Friday, January 7th, 2022. I'm Seth Lemon.
Happy Friday. I'm Nielle.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, Ahmaud ARbery's killers get life in prison. Plus, we remember the life and legacy of Sidney Poitier with the curvy critic Carla Renata. And we talk COVID-19 with Dr. Noel Reed.
Pastors from across the country have entered a hunger strike for voting rights, and Reverend Stephen A. Green and Devon J. Crawford are here to give us a scoop. Plus, news on Vice President Kamala Harris, and plans for the Super Bowl halftime show may affect Dr. Dre's finances, and we'll tell you why.
So much to talk about today, and we're going to give it to you in our voice, in our truth. You ready? Let's get it.
Well, fans are flooding social media with tributes honoring the life and legacy of Sidney Poitier. The Oscar-winning actor died last night at 94 years old. He grew up in the Bahamas and became the first black man to ever win an Oscar for Best Actor. That was for his performance in Lilies of the Field back in 1964. His career spanned decades, 2 other nominations for Oscars, 10 Golden Globe nominations, 2 Emmy nods, and he even won a Grammy. He was also a revered activist who challenged racial bias through films like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. He was a retired diplomat as well, knighted by Queen Elizabeth and awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Obama in 2009. He's one of the last surviving actors from what's considered to be Hollywood's golden age. And aside from his performances on screen, his success as a black man, it blazed trails, broke ground, and laid the groundwork for generations of actors that would follow. He's not just considered one of the greatest actors of all time, he's widely considered to be the performer who opened the doors and broke down walls in Hollywood, forever changing the industry for the better. Joining us now to discuss the life and legacy of Poitier is the curvy critic, Carla Renata. Thank you for joining us, Carla.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, he was such an amazing talent. He has so many iconic moments, so many great performances. Which one of those sticks out to you today as you think back over his life and career?
There's 3 films that stick out in my head today. The first one is To Sir with Love, because that's the first time I ever saw a Sidney Poitier movie with my mom. But the other 2 films that people overlook all the time is that he was a brilliant comedic actor. And he had 2 films that he did with Bill Cosby and Harry Belafonte, Let's Do It Again and A Piece of the Action, which are hilarious. And I love watching those films because it just shows a completely different side of this really wonderfully iconic man.
I had a chance to enjoy those growing up. Carla, he inspired a generation of black performers, never taking roles that were offensive or played into racial stereotypes. Now, when we looked at actors today, what do you think they should learn from that?
They should learn to stick up for what you know. You know, you have an opportunity to change the script and flip the script. Sidney Poitier did not care what someone thought of him, but he knew that when he laid his head on a pillow at night, that he had to be okay with the roles that he played and the representation that he was putting out in the world. So the biggest lesson that he's taught all of us, myself being an actor in addition to being a film critic, that you have to stand up for what you know and stand up for what's right, because at the end of the day, you have to answer to you.
We are so happy to have you here. So we mentioned Mr. Poitier being a part of the golden era of Hollywood. We have some soulmates that might not know what that is. So can you describe exactly when that was and what it looked like?
The golden age of Hollywood was a time where we didn't see a lot of Black people on screen. And when we did see them, we saw them mostly in subservient roles. We never saw a Black man who was standing in his truth, being strong and forthright as Poitier. When he hit the scene, Black people got excited. We were like, who is this handsome piece of chocolate standing up here in his truth and not backing down from anybody? There's this famous movie, In the Heat of the Night. There's that moment where he slaps that character in the face. That had never been done on screen ever. And it was an instinctual reaction in the moment. That was not a scripted moment, and people lost their minds, but the director did not take it out of the film. And when audiences saw it, they were like, yes, okay, Sidney, we got you. But this is why he's so iconic. He took chances, but he didn't think about it He didn't think about, I'm going to take a chance. He just took the chance, and the chips were going to fall where they may.
Sir Poitier was a groundbreaking advocate for civil rights. Many may not know, but can you talk about his contributions to Hollywood and the civil rights movement?
Yes, of course. When Dr. King was living, himself and Harry Belafonte, they were very, very active in the civil rights movement and helping to push along the Civil Rights Act, which eventually got passed. He was very, very vocal about the rights of Black people being citizens, not secondhand citizens, but citizens who deserve the right to vote, the right not to have separate fountains and separate bathrooms and sitting in the backs of buses and all that stuff. So he wasn't real loud about it, but he had a voice. Him and Harry Belafonte and Eartha Kitt and some others that we don't, usually bring up when we talk about the civil rights movement were very, very active during that time.
Carla, today we remember him as an activist because of all the great work he did, but back in the 1960s, there were some, as the civil rights movement took a more militant turn, that considered him to be an Uncle Tom because of his performances, placating white people and kind of interacting with them in ways that hadn't been seen before. How do you think he overcame that narrative to be the leader in acting in film that we know him as today?
He didn't pay attention to what people said. He did what he had to do. See, the reality of the situation is, before a Sidney Poitier came along, we did not have that image to look up to. And somebody always has to say something, and there always has to be the first. We saw the same thing happen when Barack Obama became president. We saw the same thing happen when Denzel Washington won an Oscar, or when Halle Berry became the first woman to win a Best Actress Oscar. Whenever somebody is the first of any race to do anything, it's always going to be met with criticism, ridicule, and some type of challenge. But it is how you handle that challenge with grace and whatever you have built up in the side of you that your parents have instilled in you as a human being that helps you overcome all of that.
Yeah, Carla, we appreciate you sharing your stories about him. But we want to talk about you right now. Right now, where are you located and what's going on with your career? Because you're always making moves.
Well, I'm always making moves, that's for sure. I'm currently in, where am I? Little Rock, Arkansas. I am doing the play version of Designing Women, which was a hit sitcom on CBS back in the day. Linda Bloodsworth Thompson and her husband, Harry Thompson, have now adapted it for the stage. I play Cleo Bouvier, who was the cousin of Anthony Bouvier, who was played by the late Meshach Taylor. So I'm one of the partners in the designing firm, but it's historical because there's never been a Black woman in this franchise. So I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. All right, well, we thank you for joining us today, and be safe and have a good time. We look forward to seeing your work, okay?
Thank y'all for having me. I look forward to seeing y'all again sometime soon.
All right.
The three men convicted in killing 25-year-old Ahmaud ARbery have been sentenced. Judge Timothy Walmsley sentenced Travis McMichael to life without the possibility of parole plus 20 years. McMichael's father, Gregory McMichael, was also sentenced to life without the possibility of parole plus 20 years. Now, neighbor William Roddy Bryan, who filmed the 2020 killing, was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The three men have 30 days to appeal their sentences. Also, all three men are awaiting trial on separate federal hate crime charges with the possibility of parole. For William Roddy Bryan, I'm sorry, he has the possibility of parole. But this situation right here, you have to give credit to Sean King and attorney Lee Merritt, because they were the first ones to push for this story to capture mainstream attention. And so they were there from day one with the family, and today was just such an emotional day for the family. They had a press conference with a civil rights attorney, Lee Merritt, and who's our favorite attorney, Ben Crump.
Yeah.
The family spoke also at the hearing. And one of the things that people pointed out was that there was no remorse from these three men. They didn't apologize to the family. They said nothing. And they also said that that might have weighed on such of a heavy sentence for them because they showed no remorse.
So life sentences were expected in this case because in Georgia state law, a sentence like this is mandatory for murder unless the death penalty is sought. So a lot of people weren't surprised at all that these three men got life sentences. But Neil, going back to you and the family, something that his mother said that literally almost brought me to tears, and I just wanted to bring it to you guys today if I can. She says, I want to first speak directly to my son. This verdict doesn't bring you back, but it does bring closure to this very difficult chapter in my life. I made a promise to you the day I laid you to rest. I told you I loved you, and someday, somehow, I will get you justice. Son, I love you as much today as the day you were born. Raising you was the honor of my life, and I'm very proud of you. And it almost brought me to tears, because what does a mother say in a situation like this? And it was just classy, and you could tell that it was just from the deepest part of her heart. And I just wanted to share that with you guys today, because I thought it was absolutely beautiful.
She said, you all know him as Ahmaud. I know him as Quez.
Yeah.
That's her baby. And so, of course, her speaking and saying anything is very brave. But this had to happen. I mean, if this did not get the sentencing and the charging that it deserved, this could have encouraged a whole wave of vigilantism that was racially motivated and based. And that is just not okay. We have people who are trained and depended on to do that, and it's not anyone's right as an everyday citizen to go and take the law into their own hands.
I agree. And you think about cases with black and brown people involved in it. Sometimes we just don't get justice, and it's very unfortunate. And no, she can't bring her son back, but I heard her speaking on the radio this morning when I was coming to work, and she was talking about how for weeks she had to see those shots of her son after he was murdered, see all those photos. She had to hear the stories and the details. Imagine what that does to any mother, knowing that you have to bury your child and now you're fighting for justice, when all you want to do is just fight for him to be alive. So it's very unfortunate, but they got what they deserve. And you know, one of them was unfortunate where he will have opportunity for parole, and personally I wish he wouldn't even have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, soulmates, the 3 additional police officers charged in the death of George Floyd are scheduled to go on trial later this month. The former Minneapolis police officers all face charges for violating Floyd's civil rights. The trials begin roughly 9 months after former officer Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder and manslaughter after suffocating Floyd with his knee against his neck. Prosecutors say 2 of the officers helped restrain Floyd, kneeling on his back and holding down his legs. The 3rd officer held back witnesses who wanted to intervene and save Floyd's life.
New data examining police stops and profiling in the state of California shows that officers are more likely to stop and search black people and transgender people at significantly higher rates than white or cisgendered straight people. Researchers, they looked at data from about 3 million incidents in the hope of collecting this data to lead to a new national standard for law enforcement transparency. All California police agencies are going to have to comply with these new reporting requirements by next year, and lawmakers hope that it helps to decrease disparities in policing.
In Nigeria, nearly 100 hostages have been rescued after spending more than 2 months in captivity. They included pregnant women as well as children. Now, the police chief says the hostages were rescued in joint military operations, targeting the camps of armed groups that have been terrorizing remote communities in the area. It is unclear, however, if ransoms were paid for the release of those victims.
The fate of Florida's black cemeteries may soon be in the hands of a special office created by the state. Hundreds of grave sites have been found across Tampa Bay that had been forgotten for nearly a century. Now, 70 graves, likely from Florida's early 20th century Jim Crow era, were found with radar on Florida Avenue at Robles Park. Now, soon, nearly a half-dozen other grave sites were found, including at a Tampa school and at Tropicana Field. A state task force has completed a new report that recommends the state establish an office and hire staff to look after forgotten cemeteries already. We've been covering this for a minute. We know that there was one found in New Jersey under a shopping center, one in Pennsylvania under a university, and several in the state of Florida. So this is an ongoing problem, but we know that this is happening like here in California, you know, at Bruce's Beach, the property was taken away. So this is a narrative that has happened to African Americans in this country for over 100 years, and it's just good to see that there are people out there that are advocating to preserve. And even though these people may not know their ancestors, or their ancestors may not know them, that they're still, their lives mattered. They mattered, they're not forgotten, and they will be preserved and remembered.
This was purposeful erasure. They purposefully tried to forget about these people by ignoring their graves, desecrating their graves, all these black men and women and children that were buried there, and then building upon them in so many instances. Shopping centers, as you mentioned, Neil, and other places where they just tried to erase these people's very existence. And this is why the conversation about what children are learning in schools and the accuracy of that information is so vital, because all around us we see constantly attempts over time to erase black people's significance in the American history dialogue. And it's great to see that people are fighting back and not allowing this narrative to continue.
Absolutely. You know, the movement for finding lost black cemeteries has been going on for decades. So, of course, happy that this is coming to light right now. But it's the charge has mainly been led by people who would like to rewrite history. And there was a group, I forgot exactly where they were at, but there was a group of teachers who got their 11th and 12th grade students together, all races, and they literally got an award for finding, trying to find those lost black cemeteries. And I wanted to bring them to the light. I believe it was in Essex. I'll search if I can get it back before the end of the show. And I thought that was so powerful. But someone said something on Twitter that really made me go, oh my gosh, right? Someone said that, I want to make sure I get it together, when you, and I hate to be morbid, but it was very profound. When you die, everyone has white bones. If you're black, you're white, we all have white bones, right? So why would racism matter when you die? Because when you decay, everyone has the same white bones. And so what they said was the only thing that makes a different person, like maybe a white person's body, different is the biggest organ, which is our skin. And so why would melanin overshadow white bones? Because if you open two caskets that have decayed over years, they look exactly the same.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
And I was like, that is so deep. So, it was so deep.